This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone and welcome to Edible Plants to Attract Pollinators. This talk is provided by Get Cumbria Buzzing Project. Get Cumbria Buzzing Project is a free project which aims to increase the number of pollinators throughout northwest Cumbria. And today we're going to be learning all about how you can plant edibles to attract pollinators. This talk is going to be delivered by Helen and it will take about an hour. If you can please turn off your video and your webcam and your audio so that it doesn't disturb the talk. And also, if you look at the top middle hand where it says view everyone, if you click that and press it on who's talking, which means that you'll get Helen in big. So you click the button that says view everyone and then click on who's talking and that'll show Helen in big. So I'll just hand you over to Helen. Helen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, Lucy. So today, it's really quite an exciting subject for me. Edibles, I think, are the best way to attract pollinators to your garden because not only are they useful for the pollinator, but they're also really useful to you and your family, hopefully. So there's such a wide range of edible plants that you can grow. Even if you've got a very small space, you can still grow edibles in a garden or in a patio, no problem at all. We're going to start small and we're going to work out to the bigger bits. So we've got, to begin with, I want to show you one or two edible flowers that you can grow. And these will grow very successfully in a pot, a tub, a window basket or a hanging basket. So these are ones to try. You could try them now. Some of them are very quick to germinate and very quick to flower, so you probably will get success before first frosts. And otherwise you can start them sort of next March, April time, sow them, and they're very, as I said, very quick, 10 to 12 weeks, and you have flowers. The first one that I want to show you is Nasturtiums. So Nasturtiums, really, really popular with bees. Beautiful varieties of Nasturtium available. These ones are Tutti Frutti, I think. I also grow Empress of India, which is a lovely red one. The flowers are edible and they make a lovely garnish on a salad, make a dinner party look really very professional. The leaves are edible and also the seeds are edible, and this is the seed here. You can see this one is just getting to maturity. If you were to sow that, you'd probably get a plant coming through, a seedling coming through within a couple of weeks, and then you may get some flowers. If you've got a little bit of cover, you may get some flowers before end of October. Otherwise, wait till the spring. But Nasturtiums are a really lovely plant to grow. As I say, they attract pollinators to your garden. They also attract things like black fly. So if you want to keep black fly from your other crops, it's a good one to companion plant. Now, it grows quite wildly, if you like. So you do need a bit of space in terms of space for it to roam. But it can be contained in a little container or in a hanging basket. Put a few plants in your hanging basket and it will drape over the sides and it will really make a lovely show. They taste peppery, so if you're to taste the petals actually taste peppery. The leaves, to me, taste a bit stronger, and the seeds taste very strong and very hot. And you can actually pickle the seeds and make a sort of almost like a caper, pickled caper type pickle for cold meats and things like that. So the whole plant is edible, but probably the flowers are the most attractive of all. So that's Nasturtium. The other edible flowers that I like to grow, especially really for bees, is borage. Now, buff-tailed bumblebees, short-tongued bees, love borage. And this here is borage. Okay, and you can see, I've just cut this one off actually. This was growing in the vegetable garden, otherwise known as the starflower. These little petals will just pull off, and you can use those petals on cupcakes or on salads, and they make everything look very professional when you're serving a meal with little petals, with little flowers like that on. Okay, and lots of flowers all on one stem, which bees of course love because it's very efficient use of their energy to have a lot of flowers all there at once. And once a bee has actually drunk from this flower, has drunk the nectar, apparently it refills with nectar every minute or so. So as soon as it's been emptied, it refills. So it's a really, really useful, valuable plant to have in your garden. Now, the leaves feel prickly to the touch, but when you put them in your mouth, they actually don't feel prickly at all. They dissolve, the sort of prickles dissolve on your mouth. You can eat the leaves as like a salad leaf. You can eat the flowers too, the petals too. Okay, or tastes almost cucumbery. So that's a really valuable edible flower to grow. Now, it is one that would need a bigger pot, and I put it towards the back of your arrangement of pots because it can grow fairly tall in the right sunny position, and it might need a little bit of staking if it does grow very tall. Just depends if it likes the environment or not. Usually a nice sunny place, and it will grow quite tall, really. Can grow to about 4 or 5 feet, but really worth growing. Now, if you are thinking of growing borage, you can buy the seeds mail order, or if you have borage or you know someone who has borage, you can perhaps go and see if you can pinch some seeds. And the seeds here, you can see the little black seeds form soon after the flower has died away, and you can see there they are. They're quite big. The seeds are quite big, the borage seeds, and they germinate within a week usually. I usually put them on a hotbed, but you don't need to do that. A warm windowsill and a bit of plastic over the top of the tray, and just sprinkle them and cover with a little bit of vermiculite or some sand or even some compost mixed in, and those seeds will be, as I say, up certainly within 10 days. You'll have little seedlings, and they're obvious little seedlings. They're very big first leaves, and they grow very quickly, and within 10 weeks you should have a biggish plant, and probably within 12 weeks you'll have flowers. So there's still time if you wanted to have a go with that this year. The other one I wanted to talk about is Calendula. Now, Calendula is a lovely yellow-orange flower. Marigolds, some people call them marigolds. This is the seed. These were collected from our plants last year. You can see they're all a bit sort of unusual shape. They're all different sizes and shapes. And again, they can be sprinkled onto some compost. Make sure you wet these well. Just cover with some vermiculite, and within a few days the seedlings will be up. These completely covered. Haven't completely covered those, but I would do. Just add a little bit of compost to that. Very, very easy to grow, very quick crop, and once you've had calendula in your garden, you tend not to lose it. It's one of those that seeds itself freely in the right environment. The petals can be used in cooking. You can use them in scones and biscuits and things like that. They're very good for skin conditions. So the oils from Calendula are used in lots of skin preparations, lots of creams and things, especially for eczema and psoriasis. So, you know, it's worth having a little bit of calendula in your diet if you do suffer from psoriasis or anything like that. Okay, so that's borage and calendula. Again, quick crop, and it should be ready, you know, it should be flowering before the first frost if you want to have a go before winter sets in. Again, if you want to wait, then spring is an excellent time to start as well. And the last edible flower I want to show you today is this little scented geranium, scented Pelagonian really. And this one is beautiful. It smells, I wish you could smell it. It smells of roses, attar of roses. The little pink flower is edible, and the leaves are edible too. Now that's half hardy, so you really need to keep that somewhere frost free over the winter. Take little cuttings like I have here of the main mother plant, and you'll keep these somewhere sheltered on a windowsill over winter, and next summer you'll have plenty of beautiful scented geraniums to put out in your beds. I'll just put them sort of somewhere near the patio where it's lovely and sunny and the scents are really in it. Okay, so that's the scented geraniums. Now, a lot of herbs also produce flowers, which you need. And of course, with herbs, the leaves are also edible in a lot of cases. So I'll just go through some of the herbs that are really beneficial for pollinators. And to start off with, things like thyme. Now, thyme is an absolutely wonderful herb. Honeybees absolutely love it. Bumblebees, mason bees, and leafcutter bees. This one here is called Thyme Dune Valley, and you can see it's just flowered. These are the flower seed, well, the seeds forming really here where the flower's been. What I would do now is I would just trim that back. You can use some shears if you've got a large clump, or just some scissors, chop it back, and you'll find that it comes back nicely again for the autumn. The nice hardy evergreen plants, which will grow well somewhere free draining, really love to be within the cracks of pavements, need a nice well drained gritty soil. Something that's quite neutral to alkaline is best for thyme. So those are going to attract lots of different bees, honeybees, bumblebees, mason bees, and leafcutter bees. And I've got a few other thymes here that I just want to show you. Now this one here is a lemon variegated thyme, and you'll see that that produces that purple flower, which we know is really popular with pollinators. We've also got orange scented Fragratissimus. That's a pale lavender flower, and it is a hardy, really tough hardy thyme, which will stand up to the weather really well in Cumbria. And then we've got Thyme Silver Queen. This has got the Award of Garden Merit, this one. It's a pale pink flower, and it's a lovely sort of pale variegated leaf on this one. So if you have a selection of thymes together in an area, you'll find that having that swathe is really good to attract bees. And of course, they all get to know, don't they, where the pollen is or where the nectar is, and they will really congregate. Another one that I've got here is this creeping red thyme. This one's still got a little bit of flower on it. It's quite late flowering, this one. It was late to be potted up. Usually they flower May, June time. This is quite a late one. This is a creeping red, or cochineus. You can see, although it says red, it's actually more of a cerise pink. But again, really popular with bees. Okay. Now those are, if you are in a limited space and you're not really sure how you can attract pollinators, something like this container here is ideal. Now, this isn't an expensive pot. This is something actually my son made from an old pallet. You can see it's just been put together with some scraps of wood, and it's been a couple of years since he made it. Actually, I've had other things in it, and it's got some loose it's got some bits of wood on the bottom, so the water can drain easily through. And what I'm going to do is just pop in some compost into there, and this is a multi-purpose compost. Any compost will be fine for herbs, really, as long as it isn't ericaceous, because they don't tend to like a low pH and acid soil. Okay, so once you've got your compost in, then you can just decide which plants you want to pop in there. Now, a thyme is a really good one for a planter. As I say, if you want to, you can just sprinkle a little bit of grit, or we can put some vermiculite in there as well. That will just help it to free drain. Just where the thyme's going to be, I'll just put a little bit of a vermiculite in there just to help it. Okay, so that's going to flower May-June time for the bees, and that's a really nice time. Now you can fill it with thymes. You can put all the thymes in if you want, which would be really lovely, but you'd get 2 months of flowering probably, and that would be it. But if you decide to choose different herbs to pop in, so we've got here a rosemary, a prostrate rosemary, this one. If we pop this in, we're going to extend the flowering, because this rosemary will be flowering March, April, and it may flower again in the autumn. So this one is going to extend your flowering season. You've got flowering in June, May, June, and then you've got flowering earlier on in the spring for those pollinating insects that are coming out of hibernation. So that's a really good idea to do that. And then we've got this oregano. Now this is oregano country cream, related closely to the marjoram here at the bottom. I've got a picture here of the bee on the marjoram. This one flowers, it's just finished flowering actually, flowers usually July into August. Because it's been in a pot, I think it's flowered a little bit earlier this year. But it's a lovely variegated plant, which is really tasty in lots of Italian dishes for us, but which flowers beautifully in June, July into August for the pollinators. This one is a pale pink flower. Other marjorams range, you know, from pink through to sort of bright pink. And then paler sort of almost white. This one is a pot marjoram that I've picked before I came here, just in the garden. You can see the flowers are just fading now at the end of August, but they do produce a really good show, and bees absolutely love marjoram and oregano. And then the last one that I'm going to pop in to again extend the flowering slightly more and to really appeal to the honeybees and the carder bees is lemon balm. And now this is a variegated lemon balm. And lemon balm is a beekeeper's dream, because those tiny little white flowers are really attractive to honeybees. I'm just going to pop that in the middle. Now this will flower usually August into September, July sometimes, August into September. It's a little bit later flowering. So you've got a range now, haven't you? You've got the marjoram, maybe starting March into April. You've got the thyme, flowering May into June. You've got your oregano or your marjoram, whichever you choose to put in, which would flower July into August. And then lemon balm, which will flower August into September, maybe into October, depending on the weather. So you've got 4 herbs there that are going to give you a range of flowering. And you've got the pink, the paler pink, the white, and a beautiful blue from the rosemary. And the prostrate rosemary is really one to kind of think about growing, because unlike your upright rosemary, the prostrate rosemary is really well suited to planters. So if you are limited for space and maybe you're in a windy position, often the upright rosemaries suffer with the wind. They might get burnt or even snap off if it's really windy. But the prostrate rosemary sticks to the ground and tends to just enjoy being a hugger, a ground hugger, and really good for planters, really good for hanging baskets and tubs. Now the rosemary is particularly useful to mason bees and honeybees, and as I said earlier, the bumblebees love them, and especially the ones that are coming out sort of early on to start to establish their nests, so their colonies. So it's really important to have rosemary in your garden. They're so valuable. Okay, so a little herb planter there. I make up herb planters lots and lots and lots. Lots of people love to give them as presents and all sorts, but they're really popular, and once they get established, they do look really sweet. In order to maintain them, it's a good idea to sort of just trim with scissors and use in the kitchen, of course, and just keep them looking tidy after flowering. So once the flowering's finished, just snip them off and you'll get new green growth, and new flowers will come next year. They are all perennial, all hardy, almost, you know, weatherproof completely. Okay. So we've looked at a few herbs there. There's a few more I want to just talk to you about. I haven't said much about sage, salvia, and I've got a few salvia here just to show you. Salvias produce a little blue, the culinary salvias produce a purple blue flower, which is really attractive to pollinators. The colour, of course, makes it popular with the pollinators. Here's a big sage plant, and this one will be producing flowers this year. Once they get mature, you find that they start producing the flower. It may take 18 months to get to that stage. Often if you keep them in a small pot and make them feel a little bit sort of restricted, they produce flower faster. If you put them in the ground and give them lots of nutrients, they tend to not produce the flowers quite so much because they don't feel stressed or threatened. Okay, so that's a lovely green sage, and we've got here a tricolour sage.
Needs a tissue.
Sorry? We've got this lovely variegated sage, and again this is a young green sage here. Okay, so those will all produce the purpley blue flower. They're not in flower at the moment, so I can't actually show you that, but they are a useful addition to your herb garden. If you're growing sage, it's a good idea to have a warm, sunny place for it, somewhere free draining. Somewhere like a raised bed is really good, or a wooden sort of planter, something that keeps its roots well drained and not too wet. They mustn't stand in water, especially when it's cold. They really do like to be well drained, more than any other herb, I think, really. Okay, So what else have we got here? Well, we've got hyssop, and hyssop is really attractive to long-tongued bees, to bumblebees and to carder bees. Now this hyssop is coming to the end of flowering now. It's been flowering since the beginning of June, and because it's in a pot, it's flowered faster really. And you can see the little blue flowers here go right up the stem, and they'll continue to go up the stem. This one that's finished flowering could be trimmed off, and that will encourage more flowering from the sides. It's got a very unusual kind of strong fragrance, which again really attractive to hoverflies, and butterflies love it. And the colour is also very attractive, of course. Hyssop really needs well-drained soil, somewhere where it can really flourish in the sunshine. Remember, it's more of a Mediterranean herb, this one, so treat it accordingly. Again, it's similar to thyme. You can use it in cooking, you can put it into casseroles and things like that. Use it in small doses because it is quite a strong, pungent flavour, but it is quite attractive. I love the smell of hyssop. And on a sunny day, it's lovely to have in pots or tubs around your door. Okay, so that would also go into a planter with other herbs. This is known as Anise hyssop or Agastache blue boa. And again, this is really attractive to bees. Slightly less hardy, a little bit more liable to sort of snapping really in a wind, so you need to be a little bit more careful with it, and not as hardy through the winter. So take cuttings of this one, make sure that you can keep it in the worst of the winter weather, or put it under cover. And it's really worth growing. It's a lovely plant. Very, very attractive to butterflies. So you might see on the bottom here, I've got a much better picture of chives. This is chives sort of in June time when they're in full flower, and that would be a mature plant, maybe in its second year. This one has just been potted up. It's not quite as beautiful as the one down on the picture there, but you can see that it's got a couple of flowers starting. Now these flowers, each little tiny flower head produces a little flower and a little seed. Now they're edible to us, we can eat those seeds, and they're quite strong and take your breath away if you do eat them. But bees love them, absolutely, so attractive to leafcutter bees, honeybees, bumblebees. And what you can do is you can gather those seeds, and I've got a seed head here that's almost ready to plant, and you can see, just pull them off, and underneath there, underneath each floret, you've got one chive seed. Okay, and that can be just put into the ground, cover with some soil, water really, really well, because it is quite a hard little shell around that chive seed. Water well, plenty of warmth, and will germinate 2 to 3 weeks usually, so it's a little bit longer for chives. But if you have chives at home, you'll realise that they do seed themselves in cracks in pavements and all sorts of things. So they're not that hard to germinate. Okay, so that's chives. Edible, flowers are edible, the leaves are edible, and to keep it looking tidy, what this chive needs really is a good haircut, and you can cut it right back like that, and within 2 to 3 weeks you'll have new growth that's edible, and it looks a lot tidier than this plant does at the moment. Okay, but I just wanted to show you you know, how they grow and how they seed. Okay, so that's chives. Now we've also got a different chive here. This is a garlic chive. Again, this flower similar to the pink flower, but it's white, and it's, can you see, each flower contains the seed again, and again could do with a chop, and that will regenerate very quickly, and it's a really hardy perennial. It'll take a bit of shade. It'll go in a sunny place. Very easy to grow, garlic chives, very tasty. And again, butterflies love the garlic chive flowers, the white garlic chive flowers. So that's a really useful one to grow in your garden or in a pot, no problem at all. This is winter savory. Now, winter savory is very similar, I think, in flavour to thyme. It almost tastes a little bit meatier, and it's nice for barbecues. It's really good if you make your own sausage meat. You know, if you maybe have make your own, I don't know, make your own burgers, make your own sausages, make your own kebabs, that kind of thing, because the flavour is absolutely gorgeous. And those flowers are all edible and really, really popular with all kinds of bees, particularly bumblebees. So hardy perennial. When it gets to the stage where the flowers have died away, that'll need a good cut, and you can see at the bottom here new growth coming right the way up the stem. And I'll cut that back to quite a significant amount and then just dry the winter savory in a bunch in the kitchen. And this new growth will start growing now, slow down over winter, and then next spring you'll have a beautiful big winter savory plant again. Treat as thyme, so nice dry, well-drained soil, not too acidic, likes to be alkaline to neutral. On the floor just in front of me here, I've got an old pot. Now this pot here has peppermint, and you can see the peppermint growing here, going to flower. What a beautiful colour, sort of lavendery lilac colour, and that's the peppermint flower. We've also got just popped in there a Moroccan mint. Now the Moroccan mint is just coming to flower here, and you can see it's a pale pinky lavender colour. We've got ginger mint. Isn't that lovely? Little balls around each leaf node of purpley, pale purple flowers. We've got apple mint. The apple mint, I've got a little apple mint flower just here to show you. This is what the apple mint will look like when it flowers. So you can see it sort of pushes out from the stem, central stem, and lots of little triangular flowers coming off the centre. So that's apple mint. It's quite furry apple mint, and I use that in salads quite a lot. Make a nice apple salad with mint, or you can use it in apple jelly. But the bees absolutely love this flower when it's allowed to flower, and at this time of year it flowers, you know, middle to end of August. And usually what I try and do is when the kids go back to school, September, chop it back completely, and new growth will emerge from the bottom from September, October into November, before it really goes dormant and loses its leaves for winter. So chop it back quite soon. Once these flowers have all been foraged, chop it right back and let it emerge again for the autumn. And at the back here we've got a basil mint, and this basil mint's just beginning to flower. You can just see the little buds coming on each of the ends of the leaves here on the stems, and that's a pale lavender again. So these are all different sorts of mints, all with slightly different coloured flowers, but all equally attractive to those bees and hoverflies actually. The last two that I want to show you, the last two herbs anyway, are these two. And this one here, anybody know what it is? It's Angelica. And the Angelica really doesn't like to be in a small pot like this. It needs a big, open, sunny place in your garden where it can really, really grow big green leaves for the first year. and then in the second year it will produce this huge spherical flower, which will be a complete magnet to all kinds of pollinators. That's Angelica, and it's biennial. So once it has flowered, those flower seeds will scatter, and you'll probably get new plants coming up all over your bed. But it is biennial, so it just lasts for 2 years. This other one here is lovage, and lovage has a similar kind of habit to Angelica, but it is perennial. And lovage tastes a bit like celery. You can use the stems and the leaves. It's a really nice vegetable flavour, a strong sort of, almost the flavour of stock cubes. If you imagine that's the kind of strong sort of celery type flavour. And it will grow to be 3, 4, 5 feet tall and quite big and bushy, will die away in the winter and come back the next year. But it produces yellowy green sort of flowers, which are really attractive to lots of pollinators too. But you do need a bit of space, and I would suggest putting these in a garden rather than in a pot. Okay. Right, so obviously if you have any questions about any of those herbs, let me know at the end. Write them down if it helps, so that I can just come to them at the end. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more now about fruit and vegetables. And strawberries are really popular with lots and lots of people. Lots of people want to grow strawberries. I found over the last few years that strawberries are really quite good in planters. They're really good in hanging baskets. But you do need to feed them. And feeding them keeps the flowering coming, and of course keeping the flowering coming keeps your pollinators coming, because they are fabulous little flowers for pollinators. They're single flowers, and that's what you're looking for in fruit bushes and fruit plants. A single flower that's really accessible for the pollinators to get in. Now, strawberry plants need a good dose of sulphate of potash in the dormant season, just as they're coming into leaf again. And whilst they're starting to flower, when they're beginning to bud and beginning to flower, I would feed them weekly with some tomato feed, and that will help them to keep flowering. But this time of the year, you might have pots like this that have got strawberries in them. There's actually 3 plants in there. I'm sure I didn't put 3 in. I think I only put 1 in, but there are 3 in now. And what you'll see is that you have runners coming off the strawberry plants. The babies are coming off, and they're producing lots more. They want to produce lots of strawberry plants. So what you need to do in this case is to just put some compost into a pot or 2, and you'll see that roots are beginning to form here on the baby plant. What you need to do is moist the compost, make it nice and damp, and then just push the baby plant in like that. And then if you've got a little clip or a little metal tack or something, you can just push it in and make sure that's not going to move. And again, with this little baby, it's got a little root forming already. Push it in, and then in a couple of weeks' time, it may only be a couple of weeks if it's warm and wet, just snip off the mother plant and they will be nicely established for next year. So you'll have 2 additional strawberry plants to pot on in the spring, and maybe put those into a hanging basket somewhere where the pollinators can get to them, and hopefully you should have lots of lovely strawberries in the summertime, usually June, July time, depending on the variety. So that's strawberries, and those are cultivated strawberries. I've also been doing a similar job with alpine or native strawberries, and these are the strawberries that you might find in the hedgerows if you go for a walk. You might find that you come across these little tiny strawberries, which are very profuse in July time, and they'll actually make a carpet of alpine strawberries. So again, if you have some of these, or you can get hold of some of these at a garden centre, you can do the same job. They root very, very easily, and just pop them into some compost, give them a couple of weeks, and then chop off the mother plant, and the babies will survive on their own. Okay, so that's the native alpine wild strawberry. Now I just want to show you some of the veg plants I've got at the side here. I've got some lovely broccoli here that I've just been planting in the polytunnel. Now you can plant things like broccoli in planters, in tubs, and if you haven't got cover, then they still will grow. They will be fine through the winter. They may take a little bit longer to flower, but what we found last year is that by January, February time in the polytunnel, we were getting beautiful big piece of broccoli. They were beautiful. They weren't big like you buy in the supermarket, but they were lovely sort of sprouting broccoli. And you just cut and come again, cut and come again. And we had the broccoli for about 6 weeks, through a time really when there isn't a lot of vegetable growing. Now, if you were to leave those broccolis to go to flower, they'd go from green, and the flower heads would open up, and the flowers would form, and they would be in full flower. So if you want to leave some of those plants for the pollinators, then that's a really useful time to have foraging flowers in your polytunnel or on your vegetable patch or on your allotment. Now, these little turnips, I've kept these especially for this session really. What we do in spring and summer is we grow turnips in cells like this. We sow the seed, and then we grow them in the cells, and then transplant them into the polytunnel, into the ground, once they're about this size usually. Now we've got 4 here that have been left in the cells just as an experiment to see what would happen. You can see slugs have been eating the bottoms here. But they've gone to seed, they've gone to flower first of all, and these have been so popular with all kinds of hoverflies, flies, butterflies and bees. And you can see down the stem you've got seeds forming, so you're creating your own seed for next year. And I'll just leave those on until they ripen. But the flowers have flowered right the way up the stem and have been exceptionally popular with those pollinators. So it's maybe worth keeping a few either in the ground or in your cells like we have, and just seeing what effect that has on the pollinators. And I think you'll find, like us, that you've had a lot of pollinators visit those plants. Okay, so veg-wise, if we go now into the polytunnel and we have a quick look, we've got, I just want to show you a courgette plant that's been in the polytunnel for a while now. Squashes and courgettes are really, really big flowers and very valuable to lots of pollinating insects. So we'll go and have a look at the courgette plant. We'll also have a look at the nasturtiums that are in the polytunnel that I've talked about earlier, the edible flowers. And then we'll just come back here and we'll have a look at the fruit bushes and talk about trees for pollinating insects. So if we can quickly go and have a walk out, we'll have a look at the things in the polytunnel. Our hedge here that is between 2 polytunnels is actually Mirabelle Plum. Haven't got any on it this year, but last year it was absolutely covered. and the flowers come in sort of May time. It's really popular with lots of bees. So that's Mirabelle Plum, which is a European plum, a very small one that ripens to be orange. You can see we've got tomatoes growing in this polytunnel here, and these are sun gold tomatoes. You can see the flower here, and you can hear the buzz of bees. Sun gold tomatoes produce lots and lots of tomatoes right down the stem, and they're a really useful early flowering and early ripening tomato, and taste very sweet. I'd really recommend sun gold. You might need a sheltered place outside, but they are ideal for a polytunnel or a greenhouse. The other tomato variety, of course, that's really good if you're growing them outside is Gardener's Delight. And Gardener's Delight is a red tomato, which is quite a small cherry, but it does survive very well in our difficult growing conditions in Cumbria. So this is the nasturtium I was talking about here. It's actually wrapped itself around a lemon verbena plant and all over the ground. But on a warm sunny day, which today isn't, it's covered, absolutely covered in pollinators, and it really does buzz. Okay, so that's our nasturtium. Into Savory. I've just been planting some curly kale and some broccoli in the ground here. This is for sort of winter and into the early spring, really. But the kale will probably be ready in 2 or 3 weeks to start eating the leaves, because that does grow very quickly, and it's actually a fantastic crop. So this is the courgette plant, and you can see it's produced already probably 10 or 12 fruit, and it's continuing really well to grow very well. I stuck it in the corner of the polytunnel. That's what I tend to do. I tend to put it in a corner of the polytunnel, put a load of horse manure in the middle there, stick it in, and really don't do much with it. It loves the dry, warm conditions, of course, in here, and it likes plenty of well-rotted manure. So if you haven't got access to something like horse manure, something like poultry pellets, something like that is ideal, or seaweed. We also use organic seaweed feed, which is really good. But it's a nice big plant, and it's doing ever so well. We only need one plant, and to be quite honest, some of the courgettes we can't eat ourselves. We know we take to market, so it's one plant is quite sufficient for us. And the flowers keep coming, and they're also edible. If you were watching last week, I was talking a little bit more about the apple trees. This is Katy Apple here. We've had a very windy couple of days, haven't we? So some of the apples have blown off now, which some of them I'll leave. The bigger ones I'll take in and use, but some of them I'll leave for the insects. And Katy is a really good, well suited to our Cumbrian weather. The plum tree there probably has been in the ground for 6, 7, 8 years now, and it produces an amazing amount of fruit. And of course, this spring was so sunny and warm that the flowers were everywhere, the pollinators were everywhere, and you can see they've really done a good job. So the bottom branches, I've taken the plums off the bottom branches, but the fruit is absolutely beautiful this year. I just wanted to tell you a little bit. I know time is running quite late. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about growing blackcurrant and blueberries, if that's okay. We grow lots of blackcurrants and we have a big cage, but that's not really necessary. If you do want to grow blackcurrants, get yourself a bare-rooted plant in the autumn and winter, pop it into some good well-rotted manure, and you need something like a container that's about this size. I'll show you. It's probably about 2 feet, isn't it? Maybe 20 inches, something like that. That'll be sufficient, something like that. Well-rotted manure in the bottom, put your bare-rooted bush into that. Sink it down well so that it's buried to lower than it was before. And you can see this plant here that I've just brought to show you. This is a blackcurrant. And this blackcurrant, if I was to repot this now into the ground or in another pot, I'd take it down by at least 2 inches. And that would encourage bottom growth and new shoots to come up, because it fruits on the new shoots, of course. Okay, so that one is a really good plant to grow, blackcurrant. And if you're looking for blackcurrants, the heaviest croppers and the biggest fruit, I would suggest Ben Cohn, and Ben Selleck is also a really good one. If you have two, one is an earlier flowering one. The Ben Cohn is flowering slightly earlier than the Ben Selleck. And they're really excellent producing bushes. So blackcurrant I recommend. I'd also recommend blueberries, and just here we have a lovely blueberry bush. Blueberries produce the flowering in May time, and then they fruit any time between July and September. That one's produced its fruit already and we've eaten it. It's really hardy. The only thing to remember with blueberries is that they must have ericaceous compost. And that's about it for blueberries. You don't really need to do much for them. Just keep them well watered if they are in a pot. And if you get a fancy pot, they'll look lovely on a patio. The leaves turn lovely red in the autumn and then eventually fall off. New leaves in the spring. So really hardy and really worth having a go with blueberries and blackcurrants. In terms of, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about hedging. So if you are looking for a really edible hedge, or very natural hedge, maybe for an allotment or for a bigger garden where you don't need it to look necessarily very tidy, look online for an edible hedge mix. And you can get a mix of hedging plants that contain things like native cherry, native plum, hazel, thornless blackberry, and you'll get a lovely selection of hedgerow fruits for making things like jam, as well as having lovely forage for the bees in the springtime. So I hope that's whetted your appetite for edibles today. Please do ask any questions that you want to know, and I'll try and answer them. I'm sorry we've gone over a little bit, but today we haven't had any problems with filming, hopefully, which is third time lucky. So I'll hand over to Lucy, and maybe Lucy wants to ask about questions and things.
Hi everyone, if you've got any questions, just put them in the speech bubble at the top right hand corner. Let's see, Nigel asks, can you send a list of all the plants and herbs, Helen? Is that possible?
Well, yeah, I probably can. On my website,
Quite
on my web shop. Yeah, on my web shop, there's lots and lots of herbs. So have a look at helensherbs.co.uk. There's lots of herbs listed there. But I certainly can send Lucy a list of plants I've talked about today, if I can remember them all. Yeah, I'll try and do that. Is it any in particular, or is it just herbs? Is it all of them?
Nigel, could you say, is it just herbs that you would like, Nigel? Let's send them to your website. That may be the easiest option.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any of the sort of veg and fruit on my website, but I have quite a lot of herbs there that you can have a look at. And other than that, if he emails me, I can let him know specific varieties of things as well.
Thank you. Is there any more
Okay.
questions, anybody? Any more questions for Helen? I've also put in the chat bar a link to a feedback form. If people could fill that in for me, that would be great. Means that we can do more of these kind of workshops. So I've just sent a feedback form. Okay, Janine says, how do you look after mint?
Right, well, with mint, after it's flowered, at the end of August, what you can do is you can just snip it right back using a pair of secateurs or a pair of scissors if you don't have secateurs. So with this mint here, this is peppermint. What I would do is once that's finished flowering and all the flowers gone from the top, it's all been foraged, then you need to chop it back almost to 2 inches from the bottom. And then once that's been chopped back, you could then pot it on into a bigger pot, or you could actually take it out of its pot. And I'll show you what I mean by, see how the roots get really, really tight. What you could do then is just separate that root completely, put a knife through it, cut it into pieces. You could even, give some to a friend because you will have in the spring, if you cut it into 4 pieces, you'll have 4 new mint plants. So after flowering, it's a really good idea to chop it back and split it up and repot it, because that is just going to get really, really root bound if you leave it like that for winter.
Thank you, Helen. Any more questions? Oh, Anne says she has sage, but it never flowers. Presume it's because it's in a west-facing trough.
Yeah, it might be. It might be that it's got too much room. If you were maybe to keep it a little bit more constrained in its space, it might feel threatened, it might feel restricted, and then it might go to flower. Usually if it's very warm, sort of from now onwards, last autumn when it was really quite warm and dry, the sage flowered very profusely. But if it's damp and it's not really under any pressure, it may not flower. So dry, sunny, and sort of a little bit kind of restricted will make it flower.
Thanks, Helen. Doesn't seem to be any more questions.
Okay. So next week we're going to be talking. Next week we're going to be talking about making the most of our plants. So I'll be talking about how you can split plants, how you can propagate plants, how you can sow seeds for the coming year, and how to kind of make the most of what you've got, really.
Looking forward to it, Helen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, I think that's all the questions, so we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much, Helen. That was really, really interesting. And we're also sorry, what were you going to say, Helen?
No, that's fine. Nothing.
These sessions are being recorded, so they'll be uploaded to YouTube so people can see them afterwards as well.
Thank you.
We haven't uploaded videos just yet. So thank you, Helen.
Okay, thank you.
too late now. She's gone. It was 1 till 2. But she says it's being recorded on their YouTube. But how do you accept their YouTube? Must have a special name, doesn't it?
What is it called?
Edible plants to attract pollinators.
If you just type that in YouTube, it might
Come up. Okay.
And then just look by Lucy G. Is it a website that you watch them on?
Hi,
No, I don't
Jean.
think so.
Hello. Hello. The YouTube videos will be recorded in about a week's time. They haven't been uploaded just yet. It'll be on our it'll be on Cumbria Wildlife Trust YouTube channel.
I did watch the end bit. I just hope that you couldn't. I think I was muted, so you wouldn't hear the fact that my carer was here doing things with me. But I caught the last bit. But when you say it's on YouTube, what's it actually? Is it called Edible Plants for Pollinators, or is it called Cumbria Wildlife Trusts?
It'll be called Edible Plants Pollinators, but it's not on the website just yet.
Okay, I'll look next week.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye. So it was muted, wasn't it?
It was muted before, and then she must have heard us talking about YouTube, and that's why she's come back on.
All right.
Right, are we doing your nails?
Yes. See that little black black road?